How does media portrayal of the type of artist or creative that you are affect people's perception of what you do, your own perception of what you do, and how you experience your job? Okay, this is kind of deep today. Media portrayal of the type of creative that you are. Jared, do you feel comfortable going first?
Sure.
So let's talk about, how does the media portray the type of creative that you are, and how does that affect you?
Well, first I want to talk about the type of creative that I wanted to be.
Okay.
When I was a child, I thought that I wanted to be like an inventor. Like I wanted to make objects and stuff that would solve problems.
Like Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah, like Jimmy Neutron, or who's the guy from Robots? Rodney Copperbottom,
yes.
or from Meet the Robinsons.
Yes.
Yeah, all of these were like really awesome examples of characters who were creatively solving the random mundane problems of their life, and when they encountered bigger, more adult or like world-shaking problems, they met them with that same level of like enthusiasm and confidence as they did the stuff in their everyday life, and that like really, really inspired me to want to be a maker, want to be somebody who brought stuff into the world.
Okay.
And I think later on, as I sort of transitioned out of wanting to make things and sort of wanting to be a storyteller or a representer or somebody who could translate a feeling and experience from one person to another, then examples of creativity in media in things like Tick Tick Boom really, really affected me, because
Is Tick Tick Boom, is it a play? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it started as a play. It's really interesting. The main guy, John Larson, was a very prestigious playwright, and at the time he had just finished writing this like musical about the future where everybody was obsessed with technology and everything, and he had spent 8 years working on it, and it was finally complete, and it satisfied his internal drive and what was perfect to him, but did not really amount to anything.
So,
it didn't result in the agent getting him the gig. It didn't result in in Stephen Sondheim doing what he needed for him.
So if we put it in Krista language, she thought it was shining, but nobody jumped out of their chair in celebration of the
Exactly.
idea.
And that his agent, and actually Stephen Sondheim, who he was able to connect with during the whole part of the process, told him like, hey, listen, your job is to make another one. This one did not
play.
exactly start writing the next one, and that he took that, and because that wasn't his first failed play. He had written a couple others that didn't take off, and he then took that experience and made Tick Tick Boom, which is a play/musical about the process of writing that sci-fi play. So it's very cool. You should check it out. But seeing the way that he is grappling with the weight of personal life versus the internal importance of creativity, where it's like, I know that I'm here to make this and I'm supposed to bring it into the world, and you are what's important to me as well, but also you're telling me that I need to like reprioritize and shift these things, and watching him go through, or the actor's portrayal go through, this very common struggle that artists and creatives have to go through is very cathartic and makes me feel seen.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. A lot of us, especially those of us with like young kids right now, are trying to be a creative with young kids. That's the struggle we have. How do you prioritize your projects and your internal knowing about your purpose with this other purpose that you also are responsible for? It's so hard. Let's talk about the portrayal of artists in media. Krista, from your perspective, how has the portrayal of artists in media impacted you and your work and how people expect you to be?
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know, there weren't really kind of media portrayals that I remember influencing me from a young age. I was more influenced by like the things themselves, like the creatures and light and things around me, and that kind of was what I attached to. And then I had other like individual artists that I looked up to, but I think for me it wasn't as much media, and where the media came in was in how other people kind of reacted to that. And one of the things that I hear a lot is this idea of like, art coming from suffering, and the artist being this kind of like is like they're very
tortured soul.
exactly
kind of.
and and there's these external factors or these external manifestations of things like, you know, being depressed or blotting yourself out with these different like substances or ways of just like ignoring your kind of internal thing. And I don't know, I don't like that, because I think a lot of the reason why, you know, you see some artists have that is because they're very sensitive, perceptive people, and that can be overwhelming. And so you do have a few examples of artists who behave in that way and who have those struggles, and perhaps more than the general population because of that, you know, that sensitivity and things. But I think that as a culture, like, we like to latch on to those because they're dramatic and they're you know, they make a good story, and then people think of that as what an artist is. Whereas I think that artists who have those struggles, like, that is based on the internal. Like, it's based on, you know, being a perceptive, feeling person in this world. And so I think that an artist is more powerful, more of what makes them an artist when they don't focus on those externals, when they focus on the core as the reason for what they're doing, and then those struggles become struggles rather than, I don't know, some kind of
It's interesting because you're right. I think people like you who are artists, the reason you're good at what you do is because you really see things and you really observe things down to the detail, which means that you can't compartmentalize things the way that the general population does. You know, we go along this day knowing all of these tragic truths about life and death and friendship, and just compartmentalize them for a while, and we just eat our avocado toast and we're doing fine. Whereas somebody like you can see all of that, and it's part of how you make your art so well. And I just got to call you out because you did say you were going to die from not paying attention to your own symptoms, and you wouldn't talk about your feelings because you didn't want to share them. You thought I'd be afraid of them. So,
well, definitely. Like, I definitely feel like I definitely have those struggles to a very strong degree, and I feel this desire to, you know, kind of blot out the experience. And like, these are things that I go through, but I think that kind of glorifying the negative outcomes of that is the thing that I disagree with in media, because we do go through these things that, like, very strongly, but I think that when we really look into them and lean into them and look at what is beneath them, then it's always just truth beneath them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be self-destructive.
Yeah, and it's not like a performative facade. And I don't think that young people should be trying to put on like a facade of you know, all these negative behaviors, because it's not at the core.
And it won't necessarily serve your art.
It doesn't make you a good artist.
to have to suffer,
or to you know, do these, to drink yourself to wherever, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, you're in a similar field from a design perspective. Do you feel like, before you get into maybe media's portrayal of your side, do you feel like it's kind of hard to compartmentalize when you see things at such great detail as well?
I don't know inherently that we see things in greater detail than other people. I think the applications are different. I think the truth is always deeper and richer than the stereotype, right? I think we train ourselves to look for different things than a lot of people in other verticals or other different industries, but we just have different muscle sets that we've built up, right? It's just what we've trained and the way that we think. And that's why I think in some ways it's so ridiculous for me to look at these stereotypes as creatives being extravagant and disorganized, and they don't really have a real job, but we kind of need them hanging around, which is kind of what I've noticed a lot. Not always, not everywhere.
As like a general perspective, or feelings that you're having?
No, like the media portrayals and the the stereotypes that you see in media about creatives is that they're very imprecise, or just very free-spirited and like just kind of almost lost, like they're just trying to figure out where they're going and what they're doing, and they're
The
just
character
open to
introduction
everything.
scene is them just like running around the room, and they're so out of it, but they've got so many things they're working on. You're just trying to nail them down to ask them a question,
Yeah, or
but
they're
they're
just-
solving 20 problems.
Or they're always just getting high, or you know what I mean, like they're like none of that is real. Like I mean, people in every walk of life can be like that and are like that. And so in some ways I feel like there was a point in my career where I had to like tell people, no, like this is real. Like we need design. We need better communication. Like this actually helps people communicate and it affects your bottom line. And so from just broadly from creative perspective, like creativity and the applications of creativity, like I take very seriously. And like I see every day, people are like, "Oh," I tell them what I do, and they're like, "That must be so fun. You must just be like you're at Disneyland every day." And I'm like, "You have no idea what you're talking about. You know, like go do your taxes. Does that feel like you're at Disneyland? You know?" And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. I feel like there is a perception. Like I used to wear a T-shirt. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what it said.
It says, I draw pictures all day.
I draw pictures all day. Yeah. And thank you. And I mean, that's the stereotype.
Yeah, I
and
make
so I
things
wore
pretty.
that because it's so funny.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because what Krista was talking about, she's like talking about the struggle and the tortured soul and like, I have to get this thing out of me. Like there's something amazing
The world
inside.
needs this.
Yeah. And
Healing the world.
is that really kind of how it is? It hasn't been that way for me. So, I don't know. And then I also kind of just look at stereotypes from every walk of life, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You know,
It's
every attorney and every lawyer has you on the clock at $600 an hour. It's like, really? That's not true. Like when you have lawyers and you have attorneys, these people are talented. And yes, they're expensive, but
they're people.
there's richness and depth and stuff. You just have to look further.
I think it's interesting, maybe from yours and my perspective, where you're talking about, you know, people see creatives as this free spirit, but then we have this perpendicular thing happening where we're injecting entrepreneurship into creativity, and so people don't often see this intersection. That's the word I was looking for, this intersection of creativity and entrepreneurship, where you really can't afford to be the free spirit creative that people might assume that you are, because you've got people to pay. So it is very different than what people might think from the outside when they're imagining what life as a creative agency looks like.
It's easy to take sides too. Like for a lot of my career, I would be like, well, I don't want to go work at a boring insurance office, right? Like that's just sitting in a cubicle. Like we joke around about that. It's like the same thing from the other side.
You're probably right.
And it's, you know, it's not really a fair representation of what, you know, what that industry is about and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think the big lesson for me is, you know, maybe we should just take a moment before we kind of don't give something its full due and look at it for what it is and maybe ask more questions.
Yeah, look at it for what it is. I'm really interested to get you guys as like visual artists perspective on this thing that I heard from an art teacher in high school. She said, you know, when you're drawing an eye, don't draw what you think an eye looks like. Because if you do that, then you'll draw a football, and then you'll draw two circles within each other, and then you'll draw some lines coming off the top. And that we as humans very naturally compartmentalize and chunk things into these concepts that are only as deep as they need to be understood. And that every individual thing has like so much more detail to be explored than just what it is when you look at it to understand it.
Yeah, like as opposed to pulling from the mental picture that you have, like really observing, because the mental picture that you have of what you think something
Is a reduction.
Absolutely. It has to be.
Always.
Yeah, interesting.
I feel a sense of reduction from the way that media portrays people like me. I was trying to think of like characters or any media portrayal I could think of, you know, a marketer, a social media person. And, you know, I was talking to Justin about it, and Legally Blonde came up to me. Legally
Love
Blonde
Legally
is
Blonde.
not like she's not a marketer or an advertiser in there, but like it's this same idea of like this almost girl boss thing where people are pretty and under respected for their intellect, and when they show up and do something, people are like, wow, they're actually kind of smart. Like the number of times that I've had somebody introduce, oh yes, let me introduce you to our marketing gal, she's actually pretty talented. Talking about other people I'm done with that. I am done with this concept of the marketing gal who you just pass tasks to, who just, she actually impresses you every once in a while. I can't with that. I'm always butting up against that. You're laughing because it's true.
Point of order.
Yes.
Her first degree was fashion merchandising, so she was in marketing at the beginning of the story.
Thank you.
Again, I really like Legally Blonde.
It's a great movie. I even then thought to, I was looking up female marketing or advertising characters in media, and I think back to the movie What Women Want. Helen Hunt in What Women Want. She was an incredibly talented advertiser coming up with these really great campaigns, but the whole movie, what's it about? Her falling in love with this man who can read her thoughts. I mean, I can't.
Like in a magical way? Is he like a...
Yes, he like got struck by lightning and
Wait, really?
Yes, in the movie, and all of a sudden he can read women's thoughts. And that's her character. So I find that specifically women in marketing and advertising in the media are portrayed in a way that's, the men are in charge coming up with the ideas, the women are doing the little twiddly work to get it done. And I butt up against that in my career. I have to put on, you see it when you and I go to like sales meetings, I put on this chest out, head up kind of facade because I have to be in charge of the rooms that I go into, because if I'm not, I'm going to be told what to do over and over again. And that's not my position. That's not what people are bringing me in for. So I have to put on this whole character, and find the people who are the loudest in the room and knock them down as quickly as possible so that they understand that I'm not going to be just told what to do.
That's really interesting. Like you have to almost act to meet the portrayal,
Yes.
to be what people are expecting, so that you can bring what you want to bring. That's fascinating.
In order to get those big personalities to, fall in line, you have to present as the type of personality that would make them fall in line.
Yes, because on the inside, I'm a very soft person. You get me on my own, and I'm a very soft, sweet person. But from a business perspective, I show up very tough. I mean, I'm kind and I'm honest and I'm connecting with people, but I show up strong because I'm butting against this marketing gal concept all the time.
I think I've seen that my whole career, by the way. Sexism is one thing and probably a bigger topic, but also just people who are introverted have struggled to have their voice heard and to command authority. What you really a lot of times get is an extroverted dominant type that gets all the attention and then ends up kind of
Jared feels called out over here, extroverted and dominant.
He should. Me too. And I think the ability to listen better for all of us, I think, is really important, and to take time for the soft spoken, and the more perspectives we have, the more information we have, and the better decisions we make, and so the more successful we are. So it's really simple, an algorithm for me.
Got 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. So we should be doing more with the rest, right?
Unless you have
The old
multiple
adage.
mouths.
So what you're saying is I should walk into a room and sniff a little more often?
You might. What if you detect a deadly poison, but you were going to go off on some tirade, and so you
You're
would have
always
missed it?
sniffing for food anyway.
What do you know about it?
All the things.
Don't.
Welcome back, Justin.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to talk to him
Address
in the middle
him?
like
I
this.
did though.
hell was that
got himself
about?
a beverage.
The audience is beyond the fourth wall. What are you talking about, Mark?
Jared, are there any more pieces? I feel like from an actor's perspective, there's so much media portrayal of actors and.
Well, I mean, culturally, people have had this weird thing about actors for a long time. In ancient Egypt, actors weren't allowed to testify in court because they were considered professional liars.
How interesting.
And it is interesting because there is kind of this media portrayal that like an actor is this like sociopathic blank canvas that will put on whatever personality they want, or like when they're in the room they're only caring about their own personal career, and so they're being the schmoozer, trying to learn everybody's names and say their names back to people and trying to ascend the social ladder just so that they can like get the role that they wanted. And so yeah, I do feel like I have to personally butt up against the portrayal of this kind of apathetic, not emotionless but self-centered actor that's portrayed generally.
As a whole here, do we feel like the media portrayal and the kind of expected persona of what our creative fields, what people perceive that to be, do you feel like you have to live up to that sometimes? Does it affect how you behave in your own career? I have felt like it does for me, but what about for the rest of you? Do you feel like it actually affects the way you show up to your job and your career?
I don't think so. Like, I think the portrayal that I was talking about earlier, it kind of takes, like, there's a core of truth to it, as in many, like, it's identifying something that is there, but then it's sensationalizing it and it's focusing on the exterior, on the the way it looks to people, the kind of performative or whatever. It's trying to make a good story out of it. And I think that for me, just the heart and the core of what I do is already there. And so I don't really feel like that external, like that. I don't feel the need for that kind of performative thing, because I know that art at the heart of what I'm doing, like, that's the core of it. And I think, like, hearing what you say, I feel like that's something that I'm very lucky in this position to be able to have, is to be able to express that core without having to put on the shell.
But that comes probably from, being in a scenario, in a situation, in a team where your work is really respected, because that's not always the truth for artists. And that, that's something that gives you the privilege to show up as you are, because you have a small team that really respects you as an individual.
Definitely.
That's probably pretty key. Anytime we show up into larger organizations where you're more of a cog than you are an individual, I think it's much easier to fall into these roles and these expected norms of behavior.
Like you have to mask and shield up until you know that other people value you.
Yes.
But you don't have to. That's the truth. You don't have to do that. I don't feel that you have to do that. You can be true, and you can educate people. I feel a burden of responsibility when we talk about these things to kind of buck those trends and buck those stereotypes, because they're shallow. Doesn't mean that everything has to be super deep and, or anything like that. But, the feeling that you have to conform in some way for someone else's benefit is the thing that holds us back in many cases. And so I no longer identify with that. And I have gone through a lot of that in my career, and probably still do often, especially as a business leader. I meet with a lot of other business owners and stuff like that. And there is kind of this draw, this magnetism to act a certain way or to do a certain thing. And some of it I think is appropriate, and a lot of it I don't think is appropriate. So
I like your perspective, just the concept that you don't have to. You do have a unique perspective on that, though, because you have basically run your own business almost your whole life. And not many people have done that and had the opportunity to show up as they are and set up an environment where others can show up as they are.
Oh, and a lot of these, I'm just older too. And a lot of these things, I was told the other day from somebody I respect, wisdom comes gradually. You can't just go seek it and hunt it and bring it home. It just comes gradually. And so a lot of these things you learn, and most of the things I've learned the hard way, through failure and whatnot, or watching other people fail. And I just, one of the biggest lies I think we face is that we have to be something that we're not to perform. Like, there's expectations around roles and responsibilities, and, oh, you want to be an artist, then you need to do these things. Well, no, you don't necessarily have to. You can do it like other people haven't. I think grabbing that information and getting that perspective is helpful, and a lot of times people can steer you in the right direction. But the true right path is yours to find and go down. And so as a creative agency and a company, one of the things that I try really hard to do, and I probably fail half the time, but is to give everybody some agency over what they're doing, right? Like, I don't micromanage people, or if I do, I try to not do that, so that they can have their fingerprint on the work that they're doing. All of us, and even just, our community. Like, we want to inspire people to do that too. We have so much to offer, and it'll inspire us to do more of that, and we'll all be more inspired, and so we'll end up doing more, and it'll beget more of that. So I don't know.
Orange
That's the
Nebula,
deep part.
inspiring begets inspiring.
Exactly.
The Inspire Spiral.
The Inspiral.
Yeah, there we go. I knew it was
Whoa.
close.
Uzumaki.
All right. Well, thank you three so much for sitting with me for a while. And my favorite part of today was learning how you all want to die. And I'll see what I can do about that. If you have any
Wow.
ideas about what we should be talking about, go to orangenebula.com/topics and give us some good ideas. If you enjoy our content, tell us about it. Leave us a review. If you don't, leave us alone. It's just rude, okay? We love you. Stay inspired. Keep making things, and we will do the same. Talk to you later. Bye.
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 Goodbye.